Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody. It is Monday, March 17th, the day after Selection Sunday. We have a bracket. We have
Can
a
you let
whole
me out
host
of
of.
here?
Somebody say something?
Championship week's over. You can
Oh,
let
is
me
that the
out of the
puppet?
bunker now.
I'm sorry about that, Griggs. No, you are stuck in the puppet bunker, and
Out of here,
we've
please.
we made a very.
Yesterday was Selection Sunday.
That's nice. Everybody, in case you're wondering,
Championship week's over.
if we can get it here on the screen, let's see if I can't get some video into your into there. Oh yeah, there. Nope,
Darkness.
great. You're still locked in the puppet bunker. There you are.
Can you let me
Uh,
out now?
that's enough from you. Um, okay. Um, this is our Hoops HD report. I'm Chad Sherwood. We got Matt Zukowski and John Titel up here. John Sleek in the center square. Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org and Joby Fortson. To his sides, David Griggs still in the puppet bunker down below. He's going to have a way out. We'll get to that at the end of the show. It's a little challenge that we're doing to help get him out of the puppet bunker. But I figured
Just to
before we,
unlock the doors.
well, we gotta work things out the right way, Griggs. I thought we'd start out by talking about what the selection committee did and didn't do. But maybe before we get to that, we've got two of the top bracketologists in the world here with John Titel and Rocco Miller, and the man that invented the computer formula that toasted all of them this year, and 99% of them, Joby Fortson. Joby, maybe we start with you and your J&G rankings up there on the website that came in tied for fifth in the entire world of the bracket matrix this year.
It was a unique thing. My joke is, had I reversed Oklahoma and New Mexico, I would have finished first. So I was put over by the Mountain West yet again. But yes, no, it was a good year. I inordinately got a lot of seeds right. That was the key. That there's there's skill in that, but there's also a little luck that comes involved with that. And I hit the seeds exactly right. And the last thing I'll say is the folks on this call know, because we talked about beforehand on our chats. I usually can say, well, the computer's wrong in 4 or 5. There were 4 or 5 seeds that I said, well, I missed those, but I gotta go with the numbers. 4 of those 5 seeds, like Gonzaga is an 8, Baylor is a 9, hit exactly, even though I personally thought the committee wouldn't go there. The only one that the computer legitimately missed, I knew it would miss, was Wisconsin. I knew it would be a 3. But I would have removed Iowa State, not Texas A&M. So, it would have still would have been the exact same issue. So it was a good year, and I need to run the numbers, but I know the J&G finished 13th overall last year. So 5th this year, 13th last year. I'd like to see if, to be honest, if the 2-year average, when everything's calculated out, it might be really, really up there, for the 2-year, 2-year average. And the regression analysis that I do every year, I'm probably not going to pull. It's not going to be too aggressive this offseason.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to say to the committee members that are looking at your rankings, Joby?
Well, guys, you really, really shouldn't have included Texas.
Yeah.
West Virginia should have been in. Texas should have been out.
And let's get to that. Rocco, let me start with you. I know you were with the entire world and thinking Texas should have been out. And your thoughts on what the actual committee did, which had been looking so good until we got to the last couple of regions, I thought.
Oh, looking so good until we got to the last couple of There's only 4.
Well, the first 2 regions, I was not upset with the first 2 regions, and then things went off the wall, I thought.
I can't even remember what order they were anymore, because it was I was on a live show with Goodman and those guys, just reacting. So when you're live, you just kind of black out a little bit. But I think the Texas thing is far worse than the North Carolina thing, and it's because it's because there was at least some sort of governor on how much losing is tolerated. And now it's just like, why didn't we include LSU? Why didn't we include South Carolina? Because if you're going to include Texas, you might as well invite those two also. I mean, it didn't make any sense to me. I think one of the good rule of thumbs that we've talked about for the 6 brackets that we've seen out of the 7 years of the quad system, of course, we didn't get one in 2020. It's just that easy, quick, check your math, take quad 4 out, what's your record? Well, Texas at 12-15, it's just laughable that they're even in the discussion. Second of all, you look at their resume and you take those 7 quad 4 wins away that they paid
I'll
almost
put
a
it up on the
million.
screen here for you. By the way, go
Yeah, you
ahead.
take those 7
Oh, thank
quad
you. Yeah.
take those 7 quad 4 home wins away, which I know at the bottom has Chicago State, New Orleans, Pine Bluff, and Mississippi Valley. And guess what Texas's home record was, Chad? 4-7. You're letting a 4-7 team at home into the field. I thought Ohio State was gross for having 6 home losses. Texas lost home games 7 different times. That's 7 different meaningful games that their fans went home cussing at the coach, listening to talk show radio, saying this is a horrible team. It's a bad season. It's just a terrible season. And I think it speaks to the larger volume of where college sports is either at right now or on the way to, which is SEC Big Ten threatening to leave the NCAA altogether, and everybody else being scared of that possibility and doing what they got to do to try to help these leagues feel that they are getting all the power. It's the only thing that makes any sense to me. But this team had no business even being in the discussion. The North Carolina part, I thought when Colorado State took the Mountain West auto bid, there wasn't a spot for them anymore. But we had talked about all last week, the Bubba factor, and I put a lot of weight on that. I had them in the field before the Duke game, but I just thought after the loss to Duke and going to 1-12 in that first quad, Colorado State taking that spot away, I just didn't see how you could take Carolina over Indiana, a team that had 2 wins over the field instead of, and of course, a great road win at Michigan State, which is why they were in the discussion, or Xavier, who had 3 wins against the field and a road win at Marquette, for a Carolina team whose best road win was at Florida State. That was hard to justify, and I thought they would eventually do the right thing, but that was me thinking this was a legitimate process, which it proved to not be.
Yeah, Titel, let me bring you in also here. There's that UNC in Indiana, but let me go back here. I know Indiana fans are upset, but and I think rightfully so. I think West Virginia fans are even more upset.
It
Well,
should be,
they're
Chad.
suing.
I mean,
Suing, yeah.
yes, they are. They beat Arizona. They beat Iowa State. They beat all these tier 1 teams who made it handily. The Matrix, 98% of the freaking Matrix picked them in. I think it was literally 6 people out of 249 who said they were out. So bravo to those geniuses and savants.
Oh, by the way,
That all
Titel,
did awful otherwise, by the way.
I'm just
They
gonna,
all scored overall really low.
I'm going to support your point here. Of those that did not pick West Virginia, all of them finished in the bottom 30 of the bracket matrix. They were just throwing darts at a board. It's not that they had some genius insight on West Virginia.
Which is why I don't feel bad that I missed them either, Chad. But I mean, if looking at their resume, if you have to find the reason why they didn't make it, I would say 3 tier 2 losses, which as you see on the left, North Carolina does not have any, although they do have the tier 3 loss. All the metrics seem to be solid, which is why everybody picked them. And I would be pissed if I were the Mountaineers. I wouldn't sue, but I'd be pissed.
Well, hold on. If you want to throw a team out for 3 tier 2 losses, how about throwing a team out like Texas for 5 of them, Titel?
Oh, yeah. Makes sense. And believe me,
mean,
I had some reservations about including Texas or not. They were they were all the coin flip at the end. I found that I had West Virginia and Indiana in solidly. I was wrong. And my last one was between, I think, Boise, Texas, Xavier, and Carolina. And after talking with some of the esteemed panelists and remembering Joby mentioning that Bubba was on the committee for months, literally, I went with them, and I couldn't be happier I did.
Well, at least you got that. You're one of the few that got that one right. But but go ahead, Griggs.
Right. Well, one of the things I think a lot of bracketologists and bracket projectionists look at these team sheets and sort of look at them like they're scorecards, and they're sort of trying to tally up the value of the scorecard. And that is a very good way to do it, and you can get really close, and a lot of them do. but it
So,
is
so,
a
so,
pro.
so, so, so therefore, you get tons of points for Bubba Cunningham beating your athletic director, because that's
Yeah,
all I see on the right side of the screen there, Griggs, on North Carolina.
right. I didn't like the selection at all, and or I didn't agree with it. But
Right.
when it's like one of the things I've learned from doing what I do with you guys in the mock committee situation, where we are not trying to guess the committee, we're just trying to replicate the exercise and do it as ourselves, and talking to people that have been on the committee. When they're paying for my drinks anyways, and talking to the staffers, it's like I cannot predict the human element of this. Every committee I've ever been on, be it a rules committee, hiring committee, uh, we or even our own mock committee, we make decisions that I personally do not agree with and would not do had I been a Monarch. As you all know, I would have had UC Irvine in. I think they belonged in. I thought that what they did with the 18 roads away from home, 18 road wins or 18 wins away from home, none of the first four would have done that against that schedule. That is a supposition. I understand that. But I think it's an educated one. Uh, but I mean, no bracketologist picked them in, not even Rocco, who I knew was a fan of theirs. And sometimes you just don't know what the committee is valuing and what they're not. Having said that, when you look at Texas, what the hell were they valuing that West Virginia? I can't find anything when you put them side by side that West Virginia didn't do more of. The only explanation or tip of the hat was West Virginia had injuries, and they did, and that's fair, and they should look at that. But I thought when they were injured, particularly after DeVries went down, that they did enough to show that they were close enough to where you couldn't just dismiss what they did with him. And that is the only thing I can consider is they threw those early season wins out.
Well, yeah, and Matt, let me bring you in here also, and I want to throw that North Carolina back up here again. One of the things we heard right after the selection when Bubba Cunningham came on along with the assistant commissioner, so they have somebody to try to defend North Carolina being in this field, uh, is well, North Carolina had the number five non-conference strength of schedule.
Okay,
That was
great.
their big selling
Yeah.
point. Again, there is Texas with the 286. And by the
Yeah.
way, you're going to do that, Matt. Why not put Mississippi Valley State in? They were even better than five. They were two.
Well, that's what like at least I'm looking at UNC. Basically, every resume metric except for the KPI would have had him in. And the KPI we saw this year. I don't know what Kevin Pogga was doing this year, but he spit out some crazy numbers. So I can see why if we all think that they spit out some crazy numbers, I bet you everyone in the committee room thought they spit out some crazy numbers.
Matt, the J&G should replace the KPI if they really want a good metric.
Hey, I,
KPI is there
It may
because
be.
it's supposed to mirror the committee thinking. It hasn't for years. Kevin is the only one ever to beat the J&G. He beat him when, his athletic director, sorry, but his athletic director was chairman of the committee that year. But in all fairness, he has a qualified statistical analysis, but it's missed badly the last few years. And so I would strongly say they should be looking to bracket matrix. The other very good statistical one is Torvik. Torvik finished like 10th or so. So give Torvik credit as well. It's already in the room. J&G should be in the room. Talk to Warlock.
yeah, so we
It
see
may
that.
be
So
in
that's
the
where
room,
like
Joby. Did you notice how close it was? It was if they were looking at it.
like I said, I was sort of pushing for Carolina, not real hard, but like I was putting their case up in our committee room. You did not hear me putting up Texas's case because they basically the only number that's close is the wins above bubble 46, which again that's right on the border. All their other resume metrics not in this field. Why? Yet they are in this field
Let's
somehow.
take a look, though. They're 46. Oh, there's West Virginia. They were better at
Yeah,
43. There's Indiana. Oh, actually, they were a little bit worse on WAB, but they were right there
but
also. Yeah.
and that like so that like and it's just like the law like overall record 19 and 15 not good enough. Record in meaningful games even worse 12 and 15 not good enough. I still think 6 and 12 in conference should not be good enough. But Oklahoma had such a unique case. I grew to where like I still didn't love them. You saw my votes in our committee room. I didn't think they still belonged in, but I could stomach that. I
Yeah.
absolutely cannot stomach Texas. This is this is the worst selection I think going back to like the
Oh no,
awful
no,
like '06 years, like oh six oh
Okay.
seven, where like
yeah.
there was so much buddy trading in that committee room. You literally could write an article on it like I did back then.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on because we could spend an hour on this. And as it is, Texas is in this field. West Virginia is not in this field. They're on their way to the college basketball crown tournament, and their governor is suing the NCAA, which is going to go nowhere, but at least gets a little lip service out there, I
Yeah.
think. But uh,
Right.
let's go ahead and pull up the bracket itself here. And I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in starting over here in the south region because it's the top left corner. And what I'll do is let's go ahead and maybe make this a little bit bigger. Uh, get it back on the screen there. And we'll go through region by region, look at the matchups, give previews, go to each of you here for some picks, and we'll kind of use your selections here to fill out a bracket. And Mr. Sleeka, since we haven't heard from you yet, I want to bring you in first here. Uh, and why don't we start at the very, very top there? Before we even get to the first round game between Auburn and somebody, how about this game between somebody? Alabama State and St. Francis is the first game tomorrow night in the first four. Any thoughts on that game?
Well, St. Francis is going to be one of the rare teams that's going to have a losing record coming into the tournament right here. Alabama State was another team that got hot in the SWAC tournament right here. I could probably give an edge to the Hornets in this one.
I actually like that call.
I do too.
The
Hornets
Hornets have,
really played well in the latter part. I mean, certainly in the
Good
conference
team.
tournament, but like down the stretch of the season, they were looking really good, and they had some good moments during the season too. Good showing. So I like that
Yeah,
pick,
they had
Stalika.
a yeah they had a lead at LSU in the second half. If you go way back to not that LSU's any good, but hey,
Yeah,
if Texas got in, LSU should have been in.
yeah,
So Alabama State should be an SEC team.
yeah.
yeah. Sleeka, let me go with you for the rest of this pod though. Here, Alabama State would then get Auburn, and more importantly, the Louisville Creighton game. What do you see happening in these two games?
Well, first of all, I would see Auburn having very little trouble with Alabama State in this one, at least to be a nice little in-state rivalry right here. Louisville and Creighton. This was another interesting one where Louisville was underseeded a couple lines, but it seems like the horse trade that was going on in the background was at least Louisville gets to make the short drive down I-64 to Lexington, where they're going to outnumber the Creighton fans considerably, but where Creighton's going to have the edge, I think they just have a lot more tournament experience than the Cardinals do, and you can't ignore an inside-outside combination like Ryan Kalkbrenner and Stephen Ashworth and a few of their other guys from outside. I think Creighton's going to win the first round matchup between the two teams, but I just don't think they have enough weapons in the arsenal to take down Auburn.
Yeah. So you would have Auburn advance to the Sweet 16. I honestly don't think there's going to be many brackets out there that don't have Auburn in the Sweet 16, at least. But Joby, let me go to you for this next little pot here with a very interesting Michigan UC San Diego game and
Yeah.
another game I'm already hearing people circling for upsets in the A&M Yale game.
Yeah, I mean, these are two live upsets. I actually will go with UC San Diego here. There are a lot of our committee was talking 10 seed, 11 seed, and Michigan. I get it. They had a nice run in the Big Ten tournament, but sometimes those long runs lead to weaker legs down the stretch. And Michigan did slide. Besides the tournament, was sliding at the end. I think UC San Diego actually matches up pretty well in that there will disrupt Michigan's ability to move the ball around. Now, Michigan can throw the ball straight up in the air. Yeah, they have the bigs down low, but I think UC San Diego is a live wire, and I'm not alone in that because in many circles they are that 12th seed that's almost a favorite. I feel
Yeah.
like Yale's getting the love here more because they're the Ivy team. You could have replaced Yale with Princeton, with whatever. The Ivy League always plays tough in these games, but A&M is. I actually think A&M and the J&G was a miss on A&M is 3 seed level even. I think A&M is going to take it here, and then A&M. I think Buzz has the ability to have his team go through. They have balance on that team. I like what they can do. I think they'll be able to handle it. And remember, it's 2 days later, and the second day for a team that doesn't necessarily have the depth, but intense coverage that UCSD, their style might cut against them on a 2 day turnaround against a very good Aggie team.
Okay, so
A
Auburn
couple.
A&M, we got go there. Go ahead, Griggs.
I was just going to say a couple of thoughts I wanted to share. I think both UC San Diego and Michigan could have been seated better. It kind of bugged me that the committee did not value UC San Diego and Drake more, because I thought that while they didn't have the top tier like quad one wins, they still, what they did against the schedules that they played was hard to do, and it was impressive. That being said, one of the things that Michigan just does a lot better than UC San Diego does is be tall. They're going to have to overcome that. But if they can, I wouldn't pick them in the upset. But hold, I know that it's hard to call UC San Diego a dark horse when everyone's picking this as a popular upset. But I think they can get out there and play. I'm with Joby on Yale. I've been championing Yale for a while, and I know they won the Ivy tournament, but the last week of the season and really the way they played in the Ivy tournament was the least impressive they had looked for most of the year, I thought. Having watched them play a lot, they just don't seem ready to beat A&M.
Uh, Rocco, let me go to you in the next bracket here. Starting with the game tomorrow night between San Diego State and Bubba Cunningham's $100,000 plus bonus he got for North Carolina making the
And
field.
I would like to
I mean
congratulate
I mean the
him
Tar
on
Heels.
six-figure bonus.
And,
That is
and that nice vacation he's taking the rest of the committee members on this weekend for that bonus.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rocco.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think this is where things are going to get a little bit wacky with the national narrative. Is if North Carolina, they actually have a great bracket if they can get through this game. I think this is their schematically based on the way the Tar Heels like to play, get out and run. Playing the Aztecs is a nightmare because they're one of the top 10 elite transition denial defenses in all of the land. And if you don't believe that, go back and turn on the Alabama tape from a couple of years ago when Alabama was number one overall and they frustrated the heck out of the Tide and knocked them out. Now, this version of the Aztecs is the youngest of, I think, any Brian Dutcher team. They have the injury concern with the big man, Magoon Gwath, who's just been a tremendous freshman of the year in the league. And I think the key for the Aztecs will be avoid the scoring droughts. We saw that Boise State game in the 4-5, had control of the game all the way till about the 5-minute mark. And then what happened, Chad? Like they went on a crazy scoring drought, could not make a basket. So they're going to have to score enough points, of course, against a very talented North Carolina team. But I like their ability to be able to slow down and transition. I think this could be a very interesting schematical matchup. But I do believe Carolina gets it done in the end. I could be wrong. We saw Carolina find multiple ways to lose games, especially that last one we saw with a lane violation of all things. So I'm very curious. I'm very curious. I think it's a good matchup, but I do think the winner, maybe not so much the Aztecs, but certainly if Carolina wins, they'll be in a great spot to maybe get to the Sweet 16. And that's, it's going to be the narrative that they belonged in the whole time, which we all know that doesn't have anything to do with the process. So just brace yourself for all of that.
Do you think Carolina then gets past Ole Miss then?
I think it's probably close to a toss-up. And Ole Miss has been pretty inconsistent. Now, I'll give them the pass because they are in the toughest league by far in the country. They've had multiple 3-game losing streaks. They did get a W in the SEC tournament. I just think, yeah, it's tough. I think Beard would have a good game plan, but Carolina's playing with house money right now, and the pressure kind of went away. We saw how well Indiana played when their pressure went away, at that Michigan State game. I just have a feeling UNC is going to really run with this opportunity, and I'll take the Heels.
Could take the Heels. Well, Titel, why don't I have you finish out this little pod here? Iowa State, Lipscomb, and then the winner against what we're proposing to be a North Carolina team.
So some Iowa State injury news. One of their best players is going to be out, so I think that is a red
Keyshawn
flag
Gilbert,
for them to go very far. But I still think they'll have enough in the tank and on the roster to take care of Lipscomb. And then if Carolina gets through, I mean, they are playing with house money, and they're not going to commit another lane violation for God's sake. But now that I'm a Big 12 guy, apparently, I guess I'll go with the Big 12.
You're going with the Big 12. Okay, without Keyshawn Gilbert, that was a little bit
It's
tough. But if they get the advantage of getting Carolina, um, I could see that happening also. Uh, Let me go to who we have to Matt. Well, should I go to you, Matt, for the next region, or should we get a more unbiased opinion here?
I'll
Maybe.
give you, I think, fairly unbiased in
Okay.
that my results. Yeah, like, I do think Marquette can get by New Mexico, and that's one Mountain West teams generally don't do well in the tournament.
Really,
Yeah,
Joby, we
yeah,
never knew that.
yeah, but yeah, I will pick at Michigan State, and then while I love for Marquette to get some revenge at Michigan State, I'm not going to expect it. Like, yeah, I think Michigan State, like, I wouldn't be stunned if Michigan State gets all the way to the Final Four in this region.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
I love how the Spartans are playing.
well, Griggs, let me ask you then. If this were to come true, Auburn A&M, Iowa State, Michigan State in the Sweet 16, who wins these two games and who gets to the Final Four?
A&M recently beat Auburn, and they did it at Auburn, I believe. So, I mean, they have shown that they can win. I don't see them doing it again. I know Auburn backed into this tournament a little bit. They had lost 3 out of 4, but I also think that I don't want to say that they got bored with their season, but sometimes that can happen when a team is just absolutely on fire and they know they're going to be in the NCAA tournament and everybody is gunning for them. You sometimes see really good teams dump a few in late February, early March, and then get into the tournament and do really well. So I'm inclined to think that's what happened with Auburn. Iowa State is a good team at full strength and at home. They're a Final Four caliber team at full strength and at home. They're not at full strength and they're not at home. And I like how Michigan State is playing. This is a fantastic game if the chalk holds. I mean, it's wow. The winner of this really could win it all. I am probably going to pick Auburn
Auburn. So we would have in our proposed bracket here the one seed making the Final Four in the South.
in beating the
Uh,
two. I know that's a little bit boring, but you know,
well, we threw a few upsets in there. UC San
yeah.
Diego, North Carolina. So let's scroll on down here and take a look at the West region. And Mr. Salika, let me run back over to you here. We got Florida against Norfolk State, who is actually pretty upset they were on the 16 line. They really felt they deserved a 15 seed, and UConn, Oklahoma, as their opponent.
I think given the quality of the two seeds right here, that's probably not going to make much of a difference here.
Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
just go ahead and put Florida and Sharpie right here. Now you look at UConn and Oklahoma. Obviously, the Huskies had the injury issue mid-season with Peter McNeely, and even when he came back, it took a few games for him to get right. Oklahoma, they got obviously a lot of wins in the non-conference portion, obviously slumped mid-season and managed to get just enough wins in the the end of the regular season, plus at least one in the SEC tournament. So at least they get to obviously advance to this portion. Obviously, they're going to be a little overseeded at 9, so I would go ahead and put UConn in the second round right here.
Do you think UConn could take down Florida?
This is one I've been going back and forth on.
Really?
In my own bracket, I am picking the Huskies to make to advance, but I think for purposes of our exercise, I'm going to say Florida wins a very close one.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't trust UConn this season at all.
Yeah.
They lost at Seton Hall. Seton Hall. This wasn't even a decent Seton Hall team that they've lost to a previous
Well, they're
year.
not
How
playing Seton Hall in this tournament.
Yes, they're playing
how
Florida.
Yeah.
It's even worse.
about
Um,
this game in Seattle?
Joe,
Wow, how about that game?
Joby, I got to go to you for the next one because we got a Mountain
Oh,
West team
I knew
here.
you were going to give me this awful.
Hang on just a moment. We have another surprise for Joby here. In honor of his efforts, the Mountain West has named their own court after the esteemed Joby Fortson here.
That's a Joby Fortune Court down there in Salika's picture. There we go.
Yeah.
I will tell you what I was ecstatic because I had Colorado State as a 12, some had them as 11. But then I saw they got Memphis, who is definitely overseeded. I mean, definitely overseeded here. And I don't trust Memphis in the tournament. They have the Haggerty and Hunter. They got some great talent.
Hunter's out.
Is he definitely out? I heard
Hunter's
Lissa's
probably
Yeah,
questionable
out.
as
he's
of
out.
today.
He's out. He's out.
He's
He's going to
definitely
be out. You can
okay.
trust me on that.
Haggerty's out.
No, Hunter.
Hunter is still out. Hunter is still out. I didn't know if
Yeah. Don't put that out there, but we can save it for our viewers.
we
HoopsHD special.
Nobody that's listening really heard that just said, but he's
Well,
out.
I think
If
I
you're
think
watching, you
folks-
can't tweet that.
This is the only game where the folks in the desert said the lower seed team should win, and I actually think this is one of the weakest 12s. but
Red hot though, red hot.
I think it's one
red
of the
hot against
strongest.
trash. They're as Anthony Michael Hall said, the king of the dipshits. So congratulations. Why don't we just go ahead and I like Grand Canyon. Why don't we just go ahead and say Maryland's going to win all the way through? let's just make that known now. And you gotta take chances if you're going to win your bracket. And so you gotta go with the unexpected. And the unexpected here is actually Memphis win.
Joby
Wow.
surprisingly picks against Mountain West team.
It's not who I'm picking, Joby. I realized you call the Mountain West trash. Well, I don't know how you would assess the American, and I thought that it was more trash, and Colorado State was
Memphis
blasting.
Memphis did not overly impress. That's the other component. These two teams are
This is a good game.
This is a good game. This is a good game in that both these teams I have zero faith in. So it's good they're playing each other.
Well, one of them is
I have reasonable faith in, like UCSD. Michigan and UCSD would both whip both these teams.
I'll tell you what, though, if you're filling out your bracket and you're going to say Maryland's going to win, this will be a 1-point game that won't really hurt your bracket at all. Just go with Maryland, right?
Well, if it's a 1-point game that won't hurt your bracket, some brackets give bonuses for upsets. Go with Colorado State if you're in one. It is a live game. It is. But I'm gonna say Memphis has enough to get by, and then Maryland will boat race them in the next round.
I think Maryland. Yeah, I think Maryland might get a battle from Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon has not played up to their ceiling very often, but it seems like they were getting there down the stretch and in the tournament. I don't think they beat Maryland, but Maryland better not overlook
Maryland can't look
talented, deep roster that Grand Canyon has.
But Maryland, likewise, is playing very well, I think, right now. They're really hitting on all cylinders. Mid-season, we did not see them as a protected seed.
No, not at all.
And they have proven against a very strong Big Ten, and not just the tournament, but throughout the year. You're exactly right, Griggs. Grand Canyon is legit. They are the strong. They're one of the.
I think they'd beat Memphis
out there. But Maryland, I think this is a case of me promoting Maryland more than dissing on the Lopes. The Lopes are a good team and could beat a lot of fours, but this ain't one of them.
Yeah, if the seeds were swapped, if it was Memphis, Grand Canyon, and Maryland, Colorado State, I would pick the Lopes over Memphis.
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't disagree with that assessment.
All right, well, let's Rocco, let me bring you back in here for this pot in Wichita, which has a fascinating Missouri Drake game, and then Texas Tech against Wilmington.
Yeah, so it sounds like Mark Mitchell's going to play, which is a pretty big deal. As we know, Drake is undersized, and that's probably one of their glaring holes against a power conference team. And Mitchell's a guy that likes to play on the inside. It's not like when they played Kansas State and Coleman Hawkins was hanging out on the exterior for a lot of the possessions. I think when you look at Missouri, it'll be the toughest team Drake's played. I think we all agree that Missouri brings more to the table than Vandy did, and the others that Drake already beat. It's a fascinating matchup, locally in Wichita, I should see a great amount of support for both of these teams. I just can't wait. I'll have goosebumps watching this because I got to see both of these teams up close this season. And, when Missouri's going, they're great, but they definitely have holes in their defense. And if it's close down the stretch, I'm certainly taking Drake. So I think it comes down to Missouri building a big enough lead, which nobody's been able to do all year against Drake, and because of that, I'm picking Drake.
Are we
Oh,
sure
going
this
with
is
the
not
upset.
Northwest Missouri State versus Missouri?
Four out of five guys on the court are.
Yeah.
So 80% Northwest Missouri State.
That's a
Uh,
big upset.
It is, but I mean, it's just how Drake plays. They're going to control the
Yeah.
tempo. They're going to deny transition. And if it's close, they always come through in the last 4 minutes.
I will give you that, Rocco, and that is a great assessment of this game. If they can control the tempo and slow down transition, I agree. If they can do that, they'll beat them.
Well,
Well,
even in their
here's the
losses, they
thing:
lost.
it's
Look
easier
at
to
their
do
losses.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at their losses. They lose like low 60s, high 50s game. They're still going to control the pace.
Mm.
It's just a matter of closing it down the stretch, or a couple of those had to rally a little bit to make them look close. But I like this for Drake overall. And if Mitchell's even a little bit dinged up, I like it a lot more because the size is the big problem for Drake to stop. And then our other matchup, Wilmington, fun story. I thought they played they obviously played very well in the conference tournament. But they did have to hang on against a feisty, kind of undersized Delaware team. Texas Tech's got a few injuries to keep your eye on as they go forward. But I do think just too many horses overall, even if they're down a couple dudes in this first matchup. And that would bring us to, are we picking the next round, Chad?
Yep, go ahead.
That brings us to two teams that scrimmaged each other. And I still have a
Yeah.
copy of the box score. And this is why I surprised a lot of people by picking Drake to win the Valley when I think the media picked them fifth and others had them middle of the pack. It's because of the way they scrimmaged this team. They're very familiar with Grant McCaslin's style. Ben McCollum was a finalist for the Texas Tech job when McCaslin got hired. I would not be shocked if Drake won it, but I do think just obviously the overall weaponry of Texas Tech, and if they can get healthy by the second round, probably just got to lean their way. But Drake's extremely live, and they're very familiar with each other thanks to that secret scrimmage. I think they played 3 halves against each other back in October.
Let's go to the games in Providence here. Titel, one of the premier games. The committee actually, we think, kind of monkeyed around a little bit with their bracketing rules. In fact, and we think they did just to set this up. But we have Kansas,
For sure.
Arkansas here in the 7-10 game, also a St. John's Omaha game.
Yes. I want to come back to you for why you think that what rules, written or unwritten, could have prevented it, but to give you the answer to your questions. I have the Jayhawks only because I had kind of given up on them, and then they put it on my Wildcats to finish the regular season. I know that picking against Coach Calipari in March is not a brilliant idea ever, but if this
It is the
one
last
year,
few years.
this might be the one. And then as far as St. John's and Omaha, it's never wise to pick against Rick Pitino in March, and he's playing in Providence, so I think all the crowd is going to be on his side. Good luck to Chris Crutchfield. I don't know if there's ever been a coaching pod that's more lopsided. Not that he's a bad coach. He's 91-91 in his career, but he ain't Bill Self, he ain't John Calipari, and he's certainly not Rick Pitino.
But he gets
And
to
then as far
crush
as St.
trash
John's
cans, though. So
yes. As far as St. John's versus Kansas, the Johnnies are just too hot, have been all year. All they do is lose a handful of single-digit games. They play great defense, and I think they'll have a significant crowd advantage. I think their fans have been waiting all century to wait for this game and this tournament. So I think they're going to be there. And back to Chad can you give a brief description of the Kansas-Arkansas situation?
actually, I'll throw it over to Rocco because he's the one that brought it up at first.
Yeah, well, shout out to one of the internet bracketologists, Bauertology, I believe. He
Yes.
did a reverse engineer of the seed list, and I just kind of read through it as I was getting ready for my day this morning. And great job. Like every seed line, 1 through 9, was completely on track. The organic path was to have Kansas play Vanderbilt in this spot with Marquette playing Arkansas, and that would leave New Mexico, St. Mary's, I believe, with the Midwest untouched with the UCLA Utah State matchup. So they quite simply just flipped Vanderbilt for Arkansas. And again, it's just going through the seed list the same way we bracket every single time. And everybody was in their natural fit. So there, we don't know for sure they did it for TV, but obviously that'd be a logical explanation.
Where's Vanderbilt going? What location?
They're in the St. Mary's game. So they
But they're-
basically just shuffled those 3. Yeah.
But they're going to Lexington pod, right?
Yes, they are.
As opposed to Arkansas, who's above them, was closer to Lexington than Providence. That's
It
why.
was closer.
It was closer. Yes.
If it
That's
were
why
a,
Arkansas should have been where Vanderbilt is.
they should have
Yep.
been. How close is?
Well, then they had to switch again because of a rematch. So
Right.
that's how Arkansas ended up with Marquette,
Yeah,
in the organic bracket.
I can tell you this, Rocco, and I don't know if this is it or not. It might be. In other sports, they would have absolutely done that because if they can move teams around and even up and down a seed line to put them on a bus instead of on the plane, they'll do it. Now,
No,
men's
but
basketball, different
Griggs,
animal.
It's the
Yeah,
opposite here. They
yeah.
actually gave the higher seeded team a longer trip.
Yeah,
Would
they
it
give
have
the
been a
better team a
flight?
longer trip. Yeah.
Had it been a flight either way, though? That's my question.
I
Because
could say Arkansas would be flying to Lexington.
But they still everywhere else the
They're
bracket
not on a
they went
bus.
with mileage even if it's a flight. That's just the
yeah,
point.
Yeah. You go
But
1 through
did they
16, all
not want
68
Calipari
teams.
in Lexington? That's the question.
Mhm.
Is it a question
that
of
would have
maybe
been
John
awesome.
like, ooh, Calipari, Lexington?
Yeah,
Ooh,
because Vandy
don't want
is
him.
not flying to
Could
Lexington.
be a lot of things. Could be a
Yeah,
lot of things. Yeah.
yeah.
But let's jump over to Matt. Let me go to you here for the
Sure.
West Regionals. We have a Florida Maryland and a Texas Tech St. John's game. A little bit. We actually had form hold into the Sweet 16 here. Are you going to pull some upsets on us?
I'm gonna pull a slight one. Not in the tap game. I got the Gators winning the tap game. I do have Texas Tech beating St. John's. I think Texas Tech's like control and offensive skills could be a little bit too much. I think at some point St. John's, as frenetic as they play, there's going to be a wall at some point. I don't think it'll be in the first two rounds. Kansas is not mentally strong enough to beat St. John's, but I think Texas Tech is, and they're skilled.
And what about Texas Tech Florida?
I got the Gators winning that game.
Okay. So we ended up with two one seeds after all that. So guys, we are not pulling any major upsets yet. At least
I
not into the final four.
Hey, the puppet has Arkansas going to the Final Four because of course they are. He can't get Kentucky past the first round as a protected seed, but it's just so on brand. He's going to take Arkansas there as a 10 seed.
Well, Griggs, I'll tell you what. If you want to pull some upsets, I'm going to bring up the Midwest region here, which should be on the screen on the right-hand side, and I'll give you that very first bracket there. Houston against Edwardsville and the Zags against Georgia. Come on, you want to take Edwardsville?
Well, let's give them their moment, because I don't want to say Houston and then move on and not recognize that Edwardsville, a recent transitional team, a great job under their current coaching staff to build up that program, win a conference championship, and even get inside the first four. They're going to get clobbered, but still a really good step forward for that program that probably has a bright future. Houston is just a little bit better than them. If Houston misses the bus and can't get there until the second half, Edwardsville might be able to stay in the game. But other than that, it is a ridiculous mismatch. And this is a Houston team that didn't play that many road by or home by games. They might be so undermatched they don't know what to do. Um, Georgia, I was not as big on as the rest of the committee going through the mock committee process. I did believe that they belonged in, and I did recognize that they really kind of kicked it in the gear the last few weeks. But so did Gonzaga, and Gonzaga did it more. And this is a very, very deep and talented Gonzaga roster that we thought in October would be a Final Four team.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's too much for Georgia. This matchup fascinates me, but the one thing about Houston is that I am convinced that they can just stop anyone. And Gonzaga, all of their weapons, and they have some, and they've started to show out. It took them a little long to kick it into gear, but they did, and they looked great the last couple weeks of the regular season, and certainly in the West Coast Conference tournament. I just think Houston shuts them down and in wins. I think Houston could stop anybody.
I'll tell you what. That's what we're putting in for our bracket here. Uh, and I love this Houston team. I think they just got the wrong eight seed, and I could see the upset happening here. Believe
Yeah,
me.
this,
Um,
yeah.
if you, Chad, you haven't taken one yet, and we've got a boring bracket.
I'll tell you what. I'll take the next one.
Do you want to pick Gonzaga
No,
over
no,
them?
no. I'll go ahead
All
and
right.
take
He wants two
the next spot here
upsets. This is
because
the upset.
actually this is the perfect pod for me to take because I just pulled out my list and realized what I did. Uh, we've got Clemson and McNeese here in the Providence bracket here. I know this is a very popular upset pick. I also think the ACC Joby is trash this year, much like the Mountain West after Duke. Duke incredible. The rest of the ACC
Someone who beat Duke though.
at home doesn't count.
Yeah,
All right, Griggs.
doesn't count.
I am taking Will Wade's McNeese team to
Woohoo!
not only knock off Clemson, but we
You're
know
gonna
what
have them
Purdue.
knock off High Point, aren't you?
I
You're gonna
am
have
going to
them
have
knock off High Point. You're
Griggs.
going there.
I am going there. This High Point team is probably I think is the maybe the best team that nobody ever heard of here in this bracket because people have heard of a lot of these teams, especially McNeese with everything, with Will Wade and all that. I think
I've
that
heard of
High
them.
Point is going to pull one of the shocking upsets of the first round. Uh, they've just you can't trust Purdue. You can't. They've been untrustworthy all season. I felt, and that's why I am going with one of those rare, but we get them every now and then. Those rare 12-13 games here with McNeese being the better team, having the
Oh,
more talent,
really?
and going to the Sweet 16 en route to Will Wade's moving on to a much better job next
Well,
season.
and
But the problem,
that's the issue, Chad, is with Will Wade, it's pretty much a done deal from what I'm hearing on NC State.
Yeah,
Ironically,
that
ACC, yeah.
if
Will
these
that affect
kids
the players?
if these kids haven't known all season that this is Will Wade's last year, that I don't know what planet they've been living on, Joby. So no, I don't think it affects the players. I think that these guys want their moment, especially after everyone picked them last year and they didn't come through. So yeah, you want me to pick a bracket, Griggs? There we go. I threw some upsets in for us, and I'll run it over to Salika now.
I was gonna pick High Point over Clemson, but
I actually think that is a very realistic possibility too.
yeah,
I mean, it's
with
all
all
realistic. But Purdue, like Chad said, I don't really have a whole lot of faith. They were reminding me,
I
unfortunately, of Virginia.
yeah
They're reminding me a lot where they have trouble against low seeds. They just do.
yeah.
Yeah. I like watching Purdue play Marquette. High Point shows like a mid-major Marquette how they play. Purdue did not like how the pressure that Marquette guards put on them. They're not going to like High Point's pressure.
Exactly. At High
Yeah.
Point, very good offensive team. They have some troubles on defense, but Purdue has not been very good on defense this year either, and that's where I think High Point can outscore them. Honestly, I think it's going to be one of those upsets. It's just a feeling. But Sleeka, let me go to you because it's your Xavier team up next. So start with that Texas Xavier game coming up on Wednesday. What do you think about this matchup of your team against a team that nobody in the world thinks they should be playing?
Well, first of all, I was going to add a footnote in regards to McNeese. If they pull off too many upsets in this bracket, is Will Wade not stuck there as opposed to committing coaching adultery with another program?
He'll be fine wherever he's going. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
But
Um,
but anyhow, getting back to Dayton right here, you're still going to have a matchup of some pretty good guards with Trey Johnson going for the Longhorns, and you've got Ryan Conwell, who was on fire in New York, put up 38 points in a losing effort against Marquette. But where I would give Xavier the edge, they also have a pretty balanced scoring attack with Zach Freemantle about to finally make his first NCAA tournament appearance in uniform since he was on the bench in 2023 with an injury when the Musketeers went to the Sweet 16. And also keep an eye on Dante Maddox, who has become a reliable scoring option off the bench. So I'll give Xavier the edge in this one.
Do you think your Musketeers can then take down Illinois?
that is a great game. Wow, that's a great game.
Now, if they're going to beat Illinois, which I do actually think they're going to do, they're going to have to go up against a team that's been one of the better defensive teams in the Big Ten. But the Illini run pretty hot and cold. So this is one of those games that scares me where Xavier could potentially win by 5 or 10, but they could also lose by 20. But I also want to throw out another wild card, and this is something Joby has pointed out in regards to Virginia teams in the past. The Musketeers have played in both UD Arena, which was an open exhibition against the Flyers, and also at Five Surf Forum in Marquette, where they got the win against the Golden Eagles that really put the Musketeers into this field.
So you are picking your Musketeers
I,
to
I
win two
like that
games.
pick. I
Yeah.
really do. I also think I have my own inside information in the bubble here. If Xavier is ahead at halftime in that first four game against Texas, Texas has plans to during the half announce Will Wade as the next head coach, and that could create problems from
Puppet, have you not seen Xavier when they've had double digits leads this year? They
That's
rarely hold true.
that'd be bad for Xavier if they're up in halftime. They need to come from behind, Griggs. Joby, how about the rest of this bracket? First of all,
Yeah.
Kentucky, Troy, and then could the winner get past Xavier?
Yeah, I think Pope has done a good job at Kentucky.
Yes.
I mean, I'm actually surprised that he's fit in so well and done what he's done. The only reason Kentucky's not higher is because the SEC is at the very top is so brutal. They're a very good team that if they were playing in one of the other major conferences, including a good conference like the Big Ten or Big 12, I think they would have put up the overall record that would have allowed them to be a two, similar to like a Michigan State. I believe now that Calipari is in Fayetteville, Arkansas, I believe in Kentucky, and I see Kentucky taking care of business against Troy, who is not a bad squad. And then, sorry, Stalika, I love your analysis of Milwaukee and Xavier's ability to shoot there, but I've got to go with Kentucky.
Yeah, I've actually heard some love for this Troy team, which I don't understand, honestly. I don't, not with this matchup. Maybe with some
Yeah.
other teams, but not with this
It's
matchup.
too bad Arkansas State was not the 14 because otherwise there may have been a few eyeballs as far as a potential upset pick here.
That Xavier Kentucky game is interesting. There is this triangle of between Louisville, Lexington, and Cincinnati. In less than 100 a mile radius, you have UC, Xavier, Kentucky, Louisville all in it, but they rarely play. Cincinnati and Xavier obviously play, but I don't recall them ever playing Kentucky. And when they've played Louisville, I can only remember once, and I think it was an NCAA tournament game. I mean, they
I'd
just
have
never play.
I would have to go back.
Kentucky and Lexington, or Kentucky and Xavier, or what? And less than an hour and a half apart. They never play.
They
So
are an
let
hour and 15 minutes apart.
Yeah,
But if you're talking about the Xavier Kentucky series, Xavier was more or less the occasional buy game for Adolph Ruff's teams back in the day.
yeah.
let's jump over here and Rocco down in Lexington. We got a 7-10 game, UCLA, Utah State, and so we're not giving it to Joby. Can we see a Mountain West win? Plus a Tennessee Wofford also.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the UCLA Utah State first half for the primary purpose of when Utah State played in non-conference. That's where they built the resume. Obviously, getting the big win right in my backyard at St. Mary's, and of course, getting a big win over Iowa at the time. We didn't know if they were going to be a tournament team. Turned out they weren't, but they beat Iowa in their backyard. They beat a really good North Texas team and a decent to not so good later in the year St. Bonaventure team. And the primary reason for that, Chad, was because they can mix in these varying matchup zones. They hired Eric Hout from Northern Kentucky, who Northern Kentucky had the reputation, of course, under Darren Horn as the best defensive team in the Horizon. And it worked sensationally well for the Aggies, winning all their non-conference games except for that UC San Diego game, which was a 2-point excellent game. And so they played so well in the non-league, they were able to kind of coast towards the end of Mountain West and still get a 10. But now the matchup zone's back in a way that a team from out of league is not familiar with UCLA. Mm-hmm. UCLA has weird games in the backcourt, so there's an angle here for the Aggies. Now, UCLA, sixth trip to the either Central or Eastern time zone after last week's one-and-done appearance in Indianapolis. You question if the travel wears on them or not, what Mick's going to say in the press conference, all that stuff. With all that being said, I think Templin might be hurt for the Aggies, and I don't know if they can hang on all the way through, but that could be a very interesting game just based on the zone and all of the seniors on Utah State. But UCLA, of course, more talent. We'll go with the Bruins after all that. And then in the following matchup, I think Utah State's got a chance, though, of course. Following matchup, Wofford played well down the stretch. That's an old team. They started all seniors. But Tennessee, as we know, just too overpowering. They've got everything. They're loaded. They're basically one of those teams that has so much depth and such a high floor, they're not really susceptible to an upset like this, whereas some other teams might be. I would dare say Kentucky, in fact, but that's not what Tennessee is. So they'll at least get through this game.
Do you
And
think
then I
that?
think,
Yeah, go ahead. UCLA, Tennessee.
yeah, it'd be interesting. Mick Cronin, when dialed in, is one of the best game planners in the business. Do this on 2-day prep. It's an interesting one. I do think probably too much for Tennessee. Assuming Tennessee doesn't, hit gaps in the game like they have in a few of their losses. UCLA certainly could beat them, but right there in Lexington, I know Mick loves it there. He owns horses in Lexington, in fact. But I got to take Tennessee.
Tennessee. That sets up an all SEC Kentucky Tennessee battle. And Titel, how about this? Houston against that upset minded McNeese team and Kentucky Tennessee in a really good Midwest regional semifinal there.
Well, I don't know where Kelvin Sampson owns his horses, but I like his chances against Will Wade. They just are too good. That being said, they trailed Arizona in both games this year. I watched them very closely, and so they are beatable, and they have some injuries. Then again, like they had one big man with a boot on his foot, and the other big man who fouled out, and we still couldn't hold the lead. They are legit. I've talked to a coach, Troy Scott Cross, who
This
called
is
their defense life changing, which is not something I hear a lot because
that
it's
is
life.
I was hoping you would say that because you had shared that with us before. I don't think you had ever said it during a show though, and that is just the most amazing explanation of a defense I have ever heard in my life. It was life changing.
I like it. As
Yeah.
far as the other Wildcats against the Vols, I got to interview Tennessee assistant Greg Polinsky today, who was fantastic. I just I don't love Rick Barnes in March because he's proven that he's not fantastic in March, but he has made a Sweet 16 and an Elite Eight in the past 2 years. So I think he's actually becoming a better coach late in life, which seems impossible. And the one thing I took away from Polinsky's interview today was that he thinks Jemai Mashak can guard not just anybody in the NCAA, he thinks he could guard in the NBA today. And he was a scout and player personnel guy in the NBA for over 2 decades. So even though Kentucky and Indianapolis is not that far away, they should have a lot of big Blue Nation there. I'm picking the Vols.
And if it's we then get Houston, Tennessee, who's in the Final Four, Titel?
I hope you don't like high scoring games because that will not be one of
Oh
them.
God, yeah, that's
Two
scary.
of the
That
most impressive defenses you'll see in the nation this year. Um, I'm going with the life changers. Give me the Cougars.
The Houston Cougars. So here we go. 3 regions, 3 1 seeds, guys. Matt, let me go to you as we scroll on up to the East region. Uh, let's start with this Wednesday night. American versus Mount St. Mary's. Any thoughts at all on that game?
slight edge to American.
I think that's a good call there.
Matt
Mount
Rogers,
St.
baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Matt Rogers, you know,
Stud.
he could make a name for himself because he's got that national TV audience Wednesday night for a couple hours there. But on the other hand, he then has to play Duke. But Matt, what about Duke against American and
Yeah,
interesting Mississippi State Baylor game?
yeah. As I said, I think Americans runs ends right there to the Dukies,
Yep.
That would suck.
and then dang, this matchup, good lord, I mean, this feels like an 8-9 game, even though we all thought Baylor's a hair overseeded. At the same time, this screams an 8-9 game where good. Put it this way, I will gamble on some results. I think in this tournament, this ain't one of them. I've got no clue, but I'll slightly lead Mississippi State because they're
Good
healthier.
pick.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. I've
not
been saying
big
for
on
about a
Baylor.
month now
Yeah.
that Mississippi State has been looking like an 8 seed, and there they are as an 8 seed. Do they have any shot against Duke, Matt?
No, no. I don't care. I don't care if Cooper Flag and Con Knipple could probably sit it out and Duke would win.
I agree with that too. But
Griggs,
and hopefully they're healthy for the Sweet 16.
let me let me go to you, Griggs, for this next little pod here. Oregon Liberty and Titel's Arizona team against Akron.
Okay, I'm going to start with the 413 first. Again, giving Akron their moment. They had an incredible year. Only one conference loss all year, including the conference tournament, going
And
for the
an
double.
amazing championship game there too.
Yeah, and an amazing championship game where they trailed by 18 against a Miami team that also had a really good year and came back to win. So I mean, in one sense, yeah, they fell behind by 18, but they fell behind by 18 to a good team and were able to kick it into a higher gear and come back and win. Having said that, they will not beat Arizona. I know that Arizona is on the 4 line because they got off to a somewhat slow start. But they were playing better, I thought, in March than they were in November. And they weren't playing bad in November. They're just playing better now. This next game is interesting. And it's a 5-12, and I know Oregon is favored. In Oregon, if they play to Oregon's ceiling, will win. But Oregon has been scattershot. They've been schizophrenic. I know that they're close to home there in Seattle, and sometimes the travel has something to do with it, but they just seem to go on major pendulum swings from looking really good, protected seed good, and then really, really awful to the point to where you almost wondered if they were going to fall all the way down to the bubble. Liberty is a little more consistent. They can't beat Oregon if Oregon brings their A game, but I don't know that they're going to do that. And this is a good and talented Liberty team. I think I'm going to pick the upset here and go
Really?
with Liberty.
You're not giving us our Pac-12 Liberty, Arizona, Oregon second round game.
I'm not. And
Ah,
I know that we love that mythical conference, the Conference of Champions that you had.
mhm.
Arizona and Liberty in the round of 32. I just think that like Liberty coming off the win will have their heads in the clouds and not their feet on the ground. And even if their feet are on the ground, they're just way overmatched in this one. And Arizona blows them out and gets to the Sweet 16.
Gets the Sweet 16 against Duke there, huh?
Yeah.
Stalika, let's jump down to this BYU VCU game and Wisconsin Montana in Denver.
I think this is another area where you could have a bit of a mild upset right here. VCU, the pressure is going to be off after winning the auto bid in the A10 because they pretty much had to go all in themselves because they were not likely to get an at-large bid had they come up short. So I'm going to go with the Rams in this one to knock out BYU. And then you look at Wisconsin and Montana right here. Granted, Montana getting a nice win in the top range this year, or aka the Big Sky, but I think Wisconsin's got too many weapons offensively and defensively to be prone to an upset to either Montana or to VCU here.
You got the Badgers right into the Sweet 16, huh?
Good
Yep.
pick.
Good pick. All right. Joby, St. Mary's Vanderbilt, along with Alabama against Morris Robert.
Why are you giving me all these crap seven? My God,
They're all scrap skates.
No, well, St. Mary's,
Vandy's not at
St.
home in this one.
Mary's disappointed in the WCC final, but they had a great season overall. Actually, Vanderbilt is this game in Nashville? I'm checking.
Cleveland.
Cleveland.
In Nashville.
It's not in Nashville. Not
Then I'm
on
going to
campus.
St. Mary's.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
They
we all
wanted
know
they,
Cleveland
Good
is known
pick,
for
Joby.
country music.
they wanted Texas A&M, but yeah, okay.
Yeah,
St.
no,
Mary's.
they've been they were St. Mary's has done it. Yeah, yeah, has actually gone into not necessarily hospitable places in the WCC. It's a good conference, and they got their road wins there. This, Bobby Moe, Morris Robert, et cetera, et cetera. They actually probably are the top 15 seed on the board, but they're a 15 seed going against just a talented, overwhelming Alabama team that is now back, that making the semis, beating Auburn in the on the road in the final SEC regular season game. I gotta like the Tide here, and I think the title just Sears is. You always like good point guards with a lot of experience. That always makes things go. And so I think Sears is going to be a big leader here. Let's see if the injury to Nelson, that's a big deal. I think he's going to play, but that could have an impact long term, but not enough against St. Mary's. I see the Tide rolling.
Mr. Titel. I'm sorry. Let's go to Rocco next. I'm sorry. Rocco, uh, that sets up an East Regional semifinals of Duke, Arizona, and Wisconsin, Alabama. Uh, I think these could be two very interesting games, but what are your thoughts if these games happen?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of offense on all four teams here. Surprising to say that about Wisconsin, but that's what they are right now.
It's the
Yeah.
truth.
That's why I love this
So D
Wisconsin team this year.
Yeah, I mean they're a lot more entertaining to watch for sure. The defense is a little more suspect than usual, but that's part of the deal. We saw Duke go into Tucson this year and really manhandle Arizona. I think Arizona's improved in some ways. They showed that at the Big 12 tournament. So I do think it would be more competitive up in New Jersey. But at the end of the day, Duke just too strong um, for obvious reasons. Assuming they have enough health. Now, if Duke's down a guy or two in this game, that's going to be problematic. And then I think with Wisconsin, Alabama, I think Alabama's got a similar system now, or maybe Wisconsin's playing an Alabama system, but Alabama's got just better dudes playing it and more athleticism. So if all other things are equal, I have to take Alabama in that game. And Wisconsin's just, the floor is a little lower, so it's just hard to trust them to go out and get a huge win like that on the big stage. That would set up an incredible game, I think. Alabama Duke.
That's a
Um,
great game.
yeah, highly entertaining. A lot of baskets, a lot of NBA players for sure. And we can't have all one seed, so I guess I have to pick Alabama.
We finally got a two seeded.
That would be a good pick.
Yeah, I'm
Like, I
not.
mean,
I'm not living in a world with 4 1 seeds. We did that in '08, and we're never doing it again.
but Alabama, it might be a rough matchup for Duke. I would
Yeah, I
pick
mean they
Alabama.
could.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Uh,
they haven't seen a team like that this year
yeah.
that I can
so
remember at
so
least.
here we go. The SEC has 14 teams in the field, and we just said they deserve them maybe because we put three teams in the Final Four
Oh, geez, I
along with
forgot about that.
Houston. But let me go one game at a time here. Titel, let me start with you with this Auburn Florida game, just the one game. Who do you think would win that?
Let me take you all the way back to February, Chad, when Florida won this game on the road in Neville Arena, 90-81. Janai Broom was great, 18 points, 11 boards, 6 assists. But the Gators had five guys in double figures, including 19 from Walter Clayton. And they were missing Elijah Martin, and they still beat the Tigers without him. Give me a little Gator chomp. They've proven they're good. They are that good.
Matt, what about an Alabama Houston game?
Oh, what a
Man,
matchup.
well, we saw this earlier in the year in Vegas. I actually think there'll be a different outcome this time. I think Houston would squeak by and man, total contrast of styles. Alabama wants to play about 80 possessions, Houston 60. I think that
Yeah.
I'll go with the slower team, unfortunately,
Yeah.
even though I prefer the faster pace.
I hate to do this, but Griggs, I'm going to give you the honor since you're locked in the bunker of telling us Florida Houston, who would be your national champion if this game happened?
Um, I picked Houston in the preseason back in October when we did our, preseason show and preseason bracket. I've not wavered from them since, and I'm not going to do it now. I think that they're so good defensively and good enough offensively that they can beat anyone. I know teams have beaten them, but not many since the end of November, and the teams that beat them in November didn't beat them by much. They're just unbelievably good, and I think that they win it all.
You think that they win it all? Joby, because some people might be interested in this question. If Houston did beat Florida in the championship game, what do you think the score would be? Any thoughts on
Um,
that?
yeah, because I think that means Houston controlled the tempo,
Hmm.
and so it's a little slower, but it's not. You have such good talent that it's not like you're going to be sitting at in the 50s. I think the low 70s makes a lot of sense. 141, you
141
know,
points, so like a
Yeah.
141
71-70 close
points. So
game.
somewhere, in other words, a 70 something to 60 something makes sense. Low 70s to high 60s. So I'll go
Yeah.
141.
Let's call it something like a 73-68. How's that sound?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's throw that in there. Houston
I'll go.
73-68 winners. I know people that are filling out various bracket challenges might be interested in
Yeah.
something like that, including, and we mentioned this at the top of the show, if you go up there on the website, right up top, there is a new tab up there. It says Beat the Puppet Bracket Challenge. We here at Hoops HD, for nothing more than bragging rights, have opened our first ever bracket challenge. Feel free to enter it. And Griggs, you are going to be submitting an entry. I don't know if you're going to be
Yes,
submitting what we just used tonight, or if you're going to be doing your
I'm
own
going to be
thing.
doing my own. I was wavering back and forth, but I'm going to do things a little bit differently. So
But here's the deal, Griggs. If you win,
I
if you piss the
I
best bracket out of
I
anybody that enters,
I will win. Well,
you get
anybody
out.
that
You get out of the puppet bunker.
well, wait a minute. Well, no, I mean I'm getting out. Championship week's over. I get out today. That was the deal.
Sorry, you're still in there, locked
What
in. All you got to do is prove that you're the smartest puppet in college basketball. Beat everybody else in the challenge. You've claimed it. Now
doesn't
prove
mean
it.
anything? Well, I've claimed it. Well, how do you know that those people aren't cheating?
Everybody is free to enter, up to 2 entries each. Go ahead, and I'll be throwing a couple up there. I threw one up there myself, and you'll see that I did pick McNee's high point in that back bracket as well. So I did not just make that up for tonight. Uh, Let me go through real quick. I'll scroll out here. Each of you, real quick. Any other thoughts about the entire bracket? Things that you think we did right or wrong here tonight, or anything like that? Real quick through each of you, though. Stalika first.
I could probably see not all four number one seeds going, but probably two ones, a two, and a three. My wild card would be I think St. John's probably is going to be able to overcome some of their occasional shooting deficiencies. I could see them coming out of the West. And if we're talking a surprise out of the East, and I know Matt's not going to want to hear this, I could see Wisconsin crashing the Final Four yet again.
Oh God, no.
Rocco, how about you?
Yeah, a lot of things a lot of directions to go, but I think Auburn in general has looked a little bit more mortal in the last couple of weeks. I think they're have a losing record this month, so anxious to see if they get that fixed. We've seen when Louisville goes on tears from downtown, that could be a test this weekend. Creighton obviously has their own challenges, as Stalika did a good job breaking down. So that's a team I'm curious if they've really hit a wall or not. We find out with some non-conference games. And then I would just say we picked 3 of the 4-12 seeds, but we didn't pick the one that I think is probably got the best chance, and that's if you filter the last 6 weeks of play adjusted for opponent, and I understand they've played Mountain West teams, but Colorado State's a top 10 team in the country right now. So I'm very curious how real that is. And I actually am not a Memphis hater. I like this Memphis team. I think PJ Haggerty is possibly a first-round pick. I think this is the best job Penny's done because most of the time, as we've seen, Memphis hits a wall in the AAC, like weird losses to Rice, East Carolina, South Florida in the last few years. They didn't do that this year. I give them a ton of credit because psychologically that's a lot of weird travel in that league, and they got it done both in the regular season and they saved a bunch of weird bubble teams a bid by winning the AAC tournament. That was just a lot more maturity than we've seen from any Memphis team under Penny. And regardless if you agree with the seed or not, I think that togetherness and that consistency could help them here, and maybe they will get a couple wins. So I just think that potentially has the chance to be the best game of the entire first round.
Uh, Matt, what do you think?
Well, I think I picked Houston to win a game in the Final Four in our projected bracket. But man, that second round game against Gonzaga is a sliding doors moment. And I actually think the winner of that game will go to the Final Four.
It is a good game.
Good game. Titel.
Two quick notes. Even though we don't have my Wildcats playing the Ducks, it seems like they were in the same conference like a decade ago. It was actually, we celebrated the 1 year anniversary on Saturday, March 15th, 2024, when Arizona got out to a double-digit first half lead against the Ducks in the Pac-12 tournament and then lost by double digits. Fortunately, Umar Ballo and Jermaine Couisnard are not walking through that door, so it would be a completely different game this time around, I hope. Secondly, the 8-9 seeds catch my eye only because oftentimes, and in this case, we've just kind of advanced the 1 seeds, which there's very good reasons to for all 4 of them. But I don't know if we've ever seen these teams on the 1 seed level have to face a coach like 2-time defending national champion Dan Hurley at UConn, former national championship game participant Mark Few, and former national champion Scott Drew with UConn, Zags, and Baylor, respectively. watch out because some of those coaches are good enough that even though their teams are not as good, I think they can outcoach the guy they're facing.
All right, Joby.
One trait that if you're picking your bracket that is proven pretty reliable over the years are teams. This is where Matt, you're going to love me because I start talking about efficiency ratings. And if you have a top 10 offensive efficiency matched with a top 30 defensive efficiency, that is a very good sign of your ability to make it through the tournament. And usually there's a handful of those teams. UConn over the last few years has been the poster child for this. This year there are 7 teams, which is a very big high. All the number 1 seeds fit the bill on this. But then it gets interesting for where you might see some unspoken teams make a move up. You have Alabama, which is essentially a 1 in a lot of ways. But then you have 3 seed Texas Tech and 4 seed Arizona in that mix. Watch out for those teams. Maybe they make unexpected runs to the Final Four by going through one of those other really tough teams, the number 1 seeds that are set right now.
Griggs.
A couple of thoughts. The first one, part of what we talked about at the beginning of the show, us not agreeing with some of the selections in seedings, but particularly some of the selections. While I never agree with anything, I do sort of respect that it's a process by committee, and regardless of what the points of emphasis are, because they're always seemingly changing, and who's on the committee, because it always is changing. We pointed out several times this year, it had 7 new members and 2 new metrics, and it's obvious that the 7 members used those metrics in some of the selections. Um, 31 teams get auto bids. Another 31 or 32 are no-brainers, regardless of who's on the committee and what the points of emphasis are. So, I don't feel that sorry for teams from multi-bid leagues that can't play their way into being one of those 62 teams. If you can't do that, you're sort of putting yourself on the bubble and run the risk of not being selected anyway. Having said that, while I didn't agree with the selections of some of the teams, and I did not, and neither did some of you, it wasn't like they were overly gross because while every bracketologist or most missed North Carolina and who was the other Texas, uh, generally, I think the way that they score themselves is that if you get the seed right or you're within one of the actual, it's considered a point. Is that right? Well, had the field been 72 teams and you would have selected Texas and North Carolina, you would have had them within one of the actuals. So it wasn't like they selected, LSU or South Carolina or Seton Hall or someone that just made absolutely no sense. While I didn't agree with it, rarely does the NCAA do anything, be it a selection committee or rules committee or a decision that I do agree with. So it was pretty much consistent with what they always are.
All right, on that, so quickly, there are a few other tournaments that are going on. I'll flash them up here on the screen. First of all, the NIT is out there. There's the
Oh,
field on the screen.
spectacular story from the NIT.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, I see a lot of under the radar. It's actually a really good under the radar tournament.
Yeah, it is.
Congrats
It's
to
the
teams
new
like
CIT. This is great.
congrats to teams like UC Irvine and Rocco, San Francisco in your backyard. They're getting a 1 seed, a chance to host up to 3 games. Uh,
Wrong
Dayton has
tournament.
Dayton has to go to Florida Atlantic here in the NIT because their arena is somehow a little bit busy
Yeah.
on Wednesday night. But um, a little bit of a story here coming out of well, you see UC Riverside there, the bottom left corner playing Santa Clara. They had already accepted an invitation to the CBI. Then the NIT called. They said, well, we already took the CBI bid. The NIT thought they were not taking the bid. So the NCAA called South Alabama and said, hey, you guys want the spot. South Alabama got Richie Riley there, got very excited. The team got excited. Then Riverside said, no, 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 we want the NIT spot. And the NCAA told South Alabama they can't go. Uh, Absolutely. I think I said, why not add a play-in game? Add a Riverside versus South Alabama or any type of play-in game.
It seems like
It's
that would have been
Seriously.
equitable. I wish I could say how. Why? I mean, was there confusion? Did you see Riverside not make it clear that they wanted to play because in my opinion, I think that had to be it, that the NCAA misunderstood them, because had they said no, we're going to the CBI, at that point it should have been over.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
well,
I don't
the
know how.
CBI,
Go ahead, Rocco.
I can comment on that. The CBI started signing teams about 10 days ago.
Yeah.
And in historical NIT, without the crown involved, a team like Riverside has no chance to get in. So they want to play more basketball. They're going to commit to the CBI
Mhm.
and the CBI was filling up fast before the NIT even started dialing people up. So
Yeah,
then, of course,
and then the CBI ends up filling with
NIT
only
had to call
11
80
teams at the
teams
end of the
last
day.
night. Yeah, the NIT called 80 teams last night. I confirmed with a bunch of teams that said no, and that's the only reason they even made it to Riverside in South Alabama.
Yeah, but the CBI ended up losing a couple of teams. I know a couple of teams that said they were going to go didn't even show up in the final bracket. But there is the CBI bracket, one of the smallest brackets ever. The CIT, which thought it was coming back this year, we're pretty certain that is gone. Uh,
Yeah.
we do have the new event
RIP.
though, the college basketball crown, filled with teams like DePaul and last place Colorado, and oh,
Ooh,
what
Brooke.
an event! George
Colorado,
Washington.
Colorado might win it, Chad. They
They
were hot in Kansas City.
But there's the college basketball crown. It's coming March 3rd through April 5th. So we got March 31st through April 5th. So we got a couple of weeks till these games even take place. They're all out in Vegas. They'll all be on FS1 and Fox networks. Uh, but that's not quite all the tournaments. There's one
No.
other.
There's one other, and
Well, actually, there's two other. There's supposed to be introduced tonight here. There's a brand new Black College Invitational Championship featuring two MEAC and two SWAC teams. Don't have that field yet, but that's going to be taking place in Charlotte over this coming weekend. But the one other, every year it's time to announce the AC8. And
yes.
I got to harken us back
Yes.
very, very slightly here to Championship Week because one of our favorite brackets we dealt with was the Stairway to Seven
Yes.
from the Sun Belt. It was just so much fun.
Yes.
And for
And
the AC8,
the AC8 committee, interesting. I understand. I have not seen this, but I understand, Chad, they reworked the bracket.
we did. The AC8 wanted to be even better than this. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the Stairway to AC8. Not a seven, an 8 round AC8 tournament this year in true Stairway fashion. And we're going to
Yes.
go ahead and unveil all the
That's like
teams
the
here.
7-minute abs guy from
Yeah.
Something About Mary.
Uh, Interesting. Let's begin here with our team that was last place in both the Big 12 and our mythical Conference of Champions this year. I know they're going to be playing in the crown as well, but they will also be showing up here in the AC. It is
Colorado getting
Colorado.
into the
Two last
AC8.
place
Yes.
finishes. They get to start at the very, very bottom here. Their opponent is our Hoops HD Stellings Award winner, of
Yes.
course, the Miami
Miami into the field.
Hurricanes.
Yes.
Congrats to Miami. On to step two.
What a great first night of action.
Winner gets to take on our Centenary Award
Yes.
winner. There it is, the Citadel. Wow, these are
I
great
love
games here.
they get a one round bye.
Yeah.
Up next, the best team in the Big Ten. Look at this. We got the Big Ten's very best team.
How did we
Forget
do
about Michigan
that?
State. Here they are. Sionilly.
Wow.
I thought he was going to go University of Chicago for a moment.
We got another league winner, though, Griggs. How about the Horizon League champions?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
The one and only
Morris.
Robert. Turning down the NCAA to come
Yeah,
to the ECA.
the committee selecting Morris Robert and placing them ahead of Salui there.
Up next, what are we on our fifth step already?
Yeah.
We have our player, not of the year, but of the century. This is the greatest player that we've ever had in college basketball, I think. It's the one.
Yeah.
It's the only. Andre Curbelo. How can a guy that shows up at a game like that not be the greatest player of all time?
Yeah. Is he
And
just
the
going to
guy-
be playing by himself, or is it?
Yes, he is, because he doesn't need a team.
Yeah.
He's that
He's very
good.
familiar. He's very familiar with the stairway concept as well.
Yeah. Oh God.
Winning that game moves on. The coach of the century.
Oh, God.
This is a man that won games with Sage. Yes, we're talking Doug Gottlieb, of
Doug
course.
Gottlieb. Doug Gottlieb versus Andre Curbelo might be the television event of the millennia.
If Andre could beat the prior step, of course.
Yeah.
Next step up. Oh, one of another mythical conference champions, the Beehive Conference champions. You would think, oh, that's got to be Utah State, BYU.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. They went undefeated in the conference this year, took home the old Okra bucket,
Yeah.
Utah
Utah
Valley.
Valley, yes.
And they get to go up against another one of our mythical conference champions, the Front Range champions.
Yes.
Yes, it is Colorado. Undefeated in the Front Range this year, despite last place. Their choice. It doesn't matter. It's the ACA. We can have teams in their choice.
So Colorado could advance to play themselves.
We have a MEAC
Wow.
bonus game. Back in the late 90s, the MEAC
Yes.
had multiple transitional teams in it. And on conference tournament championship game, they would have their two transitional teams who were not part of the conference tournament play each other. And they called it the bonus game. And it was a regular season game. It would be like Winston-Salem State versus NC Central.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, it's
we've
phenomenal.
kept that tradition alive with our MEAC bonus game. I'm sorry our good friend Dave Dorman is not here tonight because he loves this. We've got just some team from Iowa. As he likes, because Iowa is in Iowa, as he told us many times
Yeah.
this season. They're going to go up against, well, it was a last minute thing here, but we gave them the bid. It goes to not South Alabama. We meant Riverside. Sorry, South Alabama. It happened again.
Wow, that is rough.
Now, I just want to go back one other thing here. During the course of championship week, we were unveiling does it come up on the screen here, our best 15 trophies in college athletics.
Yeah.
It's up there on the screen, correct?
It is, yeah.
And I want to do a quick recap for everybody because we've got one last little piece of the thing here. These were our 15 top trophies.
Yes.
We had the wagon wheel,
That one's real.
the old Oak River bucket,
Real.
won by
A real
Utah
one.
Valley.
Also real.
These are real.
The
Those-
rest of the
those
front
are-
range
oh.
bucket, that Colorado one, for example, up there.
I won't say they're fake.
The
Real.
Concordia
Real.
Single Trophy. The Border War Trophy.
Sweet, I'm not
on
saying it's fake.
The Winwood Cup Trophy, yes.
Oh yeah.
We had the Silver Shako.
That is real. That is real.
Citadel and VMI. We had the Gouch Eater Cup.
Yes.
Maybe real. The Southland Conference Tournament Cup. Right there on the court. King Spud Trophy between Idaho
Real.
and Idaho State.
And that's
The
the modern-
Nokoiwu Cup.
Yeah.
The Brownmouth Cup between Brown and Dartmouth. The Stallings Award won by Miami. The Centenary Award won by Citadel. And our number one had been the Hornet's Nest, which between Davidson and Charlotte, and it looks like you know what it looks like. But I want to bring up here, we had a few trophies that did not make the list, Griggs.
Oh, okay.
I don't
Yeah.
think you've even seen
There were
these
a
yet.
lot of entries. Yeah.
These were a few of the honorable mentions that did not make it. There they are on the screen. In the top left, the Rivervide Cup. And our committee just said, what is that? It's not really a
Not sure
trophy.
how that's a trophy, but
The
it's
bottom
with
left, we got the real one here, the platypus between Oregon and Oregon State, and the bronze boot between Colorado State and Wyoming. And a couple of years ago, a bronzed, yes, you know what that is, that went to the AC8 tournament championship. But the AC8 tournament championship trophy did not even make our top 15.
yeah.
So we had to go back and come up with a better version. So here it is, our new and improved AC8 championship trophy with the goal of winning the
I've
next
seen this.
countdown.
I've not seen this.
It's an actual pile of you know what. And if you win our tournament, you've got to take it because we sure as hell ain't cleaning it up. On that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us here. We are going to be back next week, next Monday, with a update on what went on in the ACA tournament. Also, a review of the first two rounds and a preview of the Sweet 16. But on behalf of Matt Zukowski, John Teitel, Joby Fortson, Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org, David Griggs, John Stalika, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you again next week.